So we are actually being shown on ECTV. So we can start the meeting anytime Andy's ready.
We are after 6. I'd like to call this meeting to the order of the Scranton Ethics Board on December 29th, 2020. All in favor?
Yes?
I'd like to take a roll call and also welcome Matthew Meyer and Brad Kovalevsky. Welcome to the City of Scranton Ethics Board, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Do a roll call here, please. Andy Heller.
And Stephanie,
Present?
Matthew Meyer,
Yes.
and Brad Kovalevsky.
Present.
Matthew and Brad, would you like to introduce yourselves to us?
Sure. Brad, you want to go?
Sure. So my name is Brad Kovalevsky. I am a soon-to-be board member. My term actually starts January 1, so I'm here in a kind of just to get in and observe and make sure I'm understanding what's happening. And the city solicitor appointed me, so John Murray appointed. I'm his appointee to the board, and I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to being involved.
And
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. Yes, I'm Matt Meyer. I'm originally from Minnesota, but I've been a resident of Scranton for 10 years now, and I work at the university as a professor of philosophy, teach ethics courses. And I'm happy to kind of put that, I guess, theoretical knowledge or background to work in a practical setting, and happy to be part of the Scranton Ethics Board and to work with all of you. So I look forward to it.
Great. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
And Matt, we had an opportunity to meet before. Brad, I'm the solicitor. I was appointed to the board by the board last April, right before everything fell to the wayside.
And I'm Stephanie. I've been in touch with both Matt and Brad. I'm fairly new as well. I was appointed to fill one of the mayor's appointed vacancies. And I think my first meeting was in March. And like John, just before the world changed a great deal.
My name is Andy Heller. I own Steamtown Blueprint and Copy Center downtown, and I guess I'm the only original member for the board. Everybody else has moved on in some way, shape, or form. So as of right now, I guess I'm the chairman by default.
All right.
I would like to, since we've all met each other, I'd like to, number 3, reading and approval of minutes of the June 18th, 2020 meeting.
And I'll make a motion that we suspend the reading of the minutes and approve them.
Do we have a second on that?
I can second it.
I think it's got to be you, Matt.
Okay, I was wondering, yeah.
I don't think Brad is officially here right now, so.
Got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of solicitor's invoice. John?
I believe Stephanie already circulated that via email. The invoice I had submitted was, let me pull that up for one moment.
I've got a copy of it here.
Okay, and you'll see I had all my time itemized from the inception of my position here. The balance remaining at that time was $405.
I'd like to make a motion to pass Attorney Hart's invoice. Approve it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's passed. Attorney Hart, looking for your report on the pending complaint, and you need to appoint an investigative officer.
All right. I would first like to start off with the appointment of investigative officer. I know that Stephanie was kind enough to circulate or at least address everybody's attention to the applicable sections of the code. Let's see, we have regarding an investigative officer, the board shall appoint an officer as set forth herein. It is to be from time to time, we have to determine an amount to be paid. That would be reasonable compensation. There are some qualifications in order to be an investigating officer. It has to be a member in good standing of the Lackawanna County Bar Association for at least 5 years. The officer need not be a resident of the city of Scranton and shall not be a member of the board. The investigating officer is authorized to retain the services of investigators as may only delegate non-discretionary functions. I'd also like to just point out another section 2B3 of the code that does state that it is the board's duty to appoint an investigative officer. So this is a shall provision. I did speak briefly with Andy about the necessity of this position as soon as possible. And I've taken the liberty to seek an attorney that I think that would be a good fit for that type of position. I actually invited attorney Jamie Davis to come tonight. She did message me that while she had every intention to come, she was stuck on 307. She had pulled over to the side of the road because she saw a car crash and she was helping an individual who was stuck underneath his truck. So I do hope that that gentleman makes it out and is safe. And I also would like to commend Jamie, and I think that already gives a good segue into the nature of the candidate that I had suggested for you. I do have a little bit of information, background just about her. She is currently working as a defense counsel with Cipriani and Werner of Scranton. Prior to that, she was an assistant district attorney in Lackawanna County. She is licensed to practice law in PA and is a good member in good standing of both the PA and Lackawanna Bar. She has also served on the Leadership Lackawanna Board of Directors, as well as the Young Lawyers Division of the Lackawanna Bar Association. She has been a practicing attorney since 2013. I actually had the pleasure of working alongside Ms. Davis as an assistant district attorney here in Lackawanna County. Given her background in prosecutorial work, I do believe that she would be an ideal candidate for this type of position as an investigative officer. I'd also like to point out the importance of this role for our board. In practical execution, the board strives to prohibit commingling of its adjudicatory and prosecutorial functions. Complaints are to be received and reviewed by our contracted investigating officer, who will determine whether or not the board has jurisdiction over the potential issue. They are charged with conducting all investigations and will issue a written report of findings if necessary. I'd also, our code does ask that we provide a reasonable compensation. I think it would only be fair given the nature of what they'll be doing, just an hourly wage of $150 per hour. As far as, let's see, our pending complaint, Stephanie, I have a question for you. Denise, is it Nitch or Nietzsche? Is that correct? So is she our appointed secretary right now for the board?
No, she is not. Unfortunately, we spent a lot of time back in the spring and into the summer setting up the procedure for retrieving any complaints from our post office box.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that didn't work the way it was supposed to. And I was alerted to the fact that the complaint was put in our mailbox, not our P.O. box, but our mailbox at City Hall. Because
Okay.
I knew we had to be concerned about time.
Certainly.
And I asked if she would retrieve it and make sure she got it to you. So she will not be involved.
Okay.
And members of the board, we had asked that we have a secretary from the city And it turns out that that would be inappropriate because anybody in the city could be the subject of a complaint. So we decided to take the secretarial role in-house, and so I became the acting secretary. So in the future, what should happen is that the controller's office will be monitoring our PO box, and when there is a complaint, it will be.
I apologize, Stephanie. I apologize. I'm getting a message that my internet is not stable. Are you there?
Yes.
You're here.
Okay.
Oh.
I'm just going to disable the video for a moment, so it'll use less bandwidth. Okay. So to be in full compliance with the code for our procedure, I think this also will address on our agenda, going back to, I believe we have another section to create a more streamlined complaint process. It has to be, the only people that should have access to that PO box would be an appointed secretary or our investigative officer. That's another reason why this will, I think, be a little bit more cohesive, and it'll be in full compliance of our code once we have an investigative officer appointed. If I can segue into how the process will be with regards to the pending complaint. Once appointed, the investigative officer, I'll just refer to her as the officer, should be the only one to have access to that complaint. Now, she has to make a preliminary determination within 30 days of the filing of that complaint. I believe our initial complaint was received on December 4th. So time is of the essence for this matter. The very first step is to her to just go over to determine whether or not your board has jurisdiction over the issue. Once she makes that determination, she'll be able to conduct a preliminary investigation. And that is completely separate from the board's involvement. It relies upon sole discretion of the officer. I've also taken the liberty to review this process with other similarly sized jurisdictions in Pennsylvania. Obviously, we're all aware that Scranton has been looking a lot to how Reading has been doing this just since the inception of this board. As one of the responsibilities of the board is to create policies to streamline all this. And I did notice that one issue came up in Reading, PA, is what would happen if a complaint wasn't fully understandable, legible, or the like. The investigative officer would then schedule an interview with the complainant to get a full understanding of the essence of the complaint. This process fully allows the board to execute its duties in determining and adjudicating violations, and it allows a cure of potential procedural defects of a complaint. It was also determined in Reading, PA, that if the investigative officer learned of more facts that might not have been in the initial complaint, even exposing other potential violations for additional subjects, the complainant was able to either amend or create an additional complaint. This would certainly help us in achieving our overall goal of just being able to point out violations and handling them within the city. Would you like me to explain like the process in further detail after that, or do we want to just get the ball rolling start to make sure we address this within the time frame that we have?
I would say we get the ball rolling ASAP. My question to you is, if she determines there's a case, do we have to have another meeting before January 4th to tell her to go ahead or proceed and to say that the board has addressed it?
So really the board doesn't have any involvement in this entire process until after, so after the officer has a preliminary investigation, and our code has some rules for that. She can make a determination whether or not, if the violation was proven to exist. If it's de minimis, she may even dismiss the complaint on its face just because that'd be in the best interest in the citizens of Scranton, particularly, if it's just going to be a waste of resources and time and money. But at the onset of the preliminary investigation, the officer will notify both the complainant and the subject of the filing of the claim and the nature of the claim, and that is under a preliminary investigation. That has to be conducted within 60 days upon the investigator's initial determination that the board has jurisdiction. So this obviously has to be done before the 4th. At that point in time, when she determines that whether or not this complaint is meritorious and that we can, that you guys have jurisdiction over it, then she has to complete a preliminary investigation within 60 days. If she requires more time, she's allowed to take extensions 30 days, 30-day segments at a time. She just has to, after the investigation, the officer finds facts to support the claim, then a full investigation will commence. If no facts can support the claim, it will be dismissed. The subject shall be notified of a full investigation within 3 days after the commencement. The subject will also be notified of the complainant at that time. So if there's no merit behind this complaint that was filed, the subject will not know until a full investigation takes place. So that also goes, I mean, that obviously that benefits people because you don't want any meritless accusations. And that's the reason for this discretionary position and how it's separate and apart, very independent from the board. The whole full investigation has to be complete within 180 days, at which time the officer will make a determination of whether to terminate the investigation if, taking all the facts, they weren't enough to show the case, or produce what's called a findings report. That is when the board finally actually becomes apprised of any issues. So the findings report will state the pertinent facts of the investigation and will be provided to the subject and complainant. At that time, the subject has 30 days to request an evidentiary hearing with the officer. And then the officer shall immediately notify the board of the request for a hearing and provide the names of the complainant and subject. So that really should be the first time that the board members are apprised of the complaint and the parties interested. I don't know if that answered your question.
I believe we have to make a motion to name Jamie Davis as our Attorney Davis as our investigative officer now, so she can proceed by January 4th. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Could I ask a question? Could I ask a question? What's the length of the appointment, the term? Is this an indefinite term or is it?
No, you know, I brought that up with Andy, and I also mentioned that to Jamie. I think we could set that on a case-by-case basis. I think for the start.
Okay.
Again, this is our first complaint in the entire year, and we have a couple days left. So I don't know how this will play out. I do know that, I mean, if we want to have her on standby, because really the only person that should be accessing the PO box right now is her, especially since we don't have an appointed secretary.
So the length of the term right now would be this particular complaint or this case.
Yes.
And then we could move. Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
And would we also be asking her to monitor the PO box?
I think the best process for that is if we already have somebody that has access to the PO box just to see if there's anything there, maybe they be charged with just notifying, you know, not touching anything that might be in there. But if we do have a correspondence or some type of complaint without opening it, then that's when, you know, she's engaged.
Okay. Would you like me to contact the controller's office after I have her information and tell them what the process is?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And I think that, I think that's wise.
So we're asking them just to monitor it, but not to retrieve.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
to contact her. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I entertain a motion to nominate Attorney Davis to be our investigative officer for this particular case?
I'll second it.
I don't know if I can second it. All in favor?
If that's appropriate. Aye.
Aye.
Just for the sake of the minutes, Andy, did you make the motion?
I
Second?
did. I'm not sure I'm allowed to, but I did.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Attorney Hart, you can proceed with that with Attorney Davis?
Yes, yeah, I will reach out to her and I will just effectuate her position.
Do we need to develop a contract with her?
Yeah, I'll make sure that she presents one to us tomorrow. Yeah, like I said, time is of the essence in this matter, so yeah, we can get the ball rolling ASAP.
Does that conclude your report, Attorney Hart?
Yes, I believe that covered the two issues.
I just have one more question about the process. So when Attorney Davis makes a determination that either we do have jurisdiction or we do not, will we know that she's made that determination? Will we know if she decides to go on with an investigation?
We don't have to know, actually. I mean, yeah, that's the whole point of having giving her autonomy with this process, because she's prosecutor and then you'd be jury, so, and judge, so that it's streamlined that way, and she has the discretion to dispose of cases as she sees fit if there is no merit. The whole point, I mean, confidentiality is of the utmost importance with this process, particularly if there's anything frivolous.
But would we know if she were continuing the investigation?
Yes, I mean, she'll be able to provide reports to me just to say, this is ongoing.
Okay.
As far as any details, that's, yeah.
I think we need that.
Right.
Yep.
Report to you.
And if she determines that there's no evidence for the case, is that presented to us? My concern would be the person who submitted the complaint would then want to know if there was an opportunity to appeal that decision.
I don't know if the code actually addresses whether or not they can appeal. I mean, she would probably she reaches out to the complainant to explain why it wasn't to move forward and why it was dismissed. I'll have to review the code again just to see if this, I mean, I know there's rights to appeal upon evidentiary hearing, but I don't know if it, on its first blush, like when it's.
I just wouldn't want someone to be disenfranchised if they go through this process and they feel as though they weren't heard. And it sounds as though there are processes in place to make sure everything is happening in the appropriate manner, but
right,
making sure they have that.
It's not like you're one and done. She'll explain why the board may not have had jurisdiction over that matter, and they can refile if they'd like.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's not like a final determination, so it's not appealable.
Are we all on the same page here? I think.
This is our first complaint, so it's really going to be a learning process for us.
Absolutely, yes.
I'd like to move on to item 6, other business. Stephanie, do you have anything on any of these? Board landing page or the complaint form process?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, since we haven't met since June, at that point we were, and we actually spent most of the past year putting together the documentation that the code requires, and requires that it be posted on the city website. And so we do have a landing page, and has all the information that the code required us to document at this point. So there, if you look at the landing page, there, our complaint form is there. There is our gift reporting form is there. There's information about the filing of the financial interest statements and our review of those. Also, the campaign contribution limits for the next, is it the next 4 years or the next 2 years? So we have met the requirements of the code and what has to be posted there. And of course, we need to keep that up to date. The complaint form process we've just talked about. We thought we had set up a good process, but it obviously needs to be improved. So we'll be working on that. So those were the updates that I had.
Thank you.
I would like to say, with regards to the complaint form that we have right now, I think it's important that we have we need to have it stamped in some form so we know what date it was actually filed moving forward with future complaints, because that's when that's when the clock starts. So the investigative officer will have 30 days to make that initial determination. And I believe right now there's no way of knowing the actual filing date.
Right. And the plan was for the controller's office to retrieve the complaint and to actually stamp it as received. But
not open.
Now, I did receive in the mail yesterday at my office something from the controller's office in a manila envelope. I'm assuming that is the complaint. I did not want to open it until we made a determination of an investigative officer. I just think it's more appropriate for them to open it.
right.
Agreed.
So how do you suggest we have it stamped in, have the date stamped in?
Right on the envelope itself, on the exterior of it.
Right, but we're saying that the controller's office will not be retrieving it.
Right. Well, we'd have to. I thought it was scheduled for like every Friday. We could have the investigative officer just make that at the point, just to check, or if the PO box is accessible by the controllers, and just to take a look to see if there's something there. It's just the whole point is they can't open the complaint.
Right, but could they retrieve the complaint and call the investigative officer?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so they can retrieve the complaint, they can stamp the envelope, and then call the investigative officer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
My question to that, if the controller's office retrieves that letter and there's a return address on it, it becomes basically public information who filed the complaint. We're trying to be very careful about keeping all names anonymous.
Yes, that's true.
I'm much more comfortable with the investigative officer, or not to put anything on yourself to retrieve this, or actually check it on Fridays. So nobody really knows who files a complaint.
Yeah, and I mean, the code is pretty, it's unambiguous about that. It has to be either a secretary appointed by the board or the investigative officer.
If that's the case, do we have to go further after this case and put the investigative officer and retainer to do this?
That, or if we can find somebody willing to be, to take on the role as the secretary for the board.
Yeah, we tried.
Right.
And it was just deemed not appropriate that anyone from the city could do that. And I understand that Reading does have someone from the city clerk's office assume that role. But our law department felt that it would not be appropriate.
Okay. Well, that's something we'll have to explore in a little bit more detail moving forward. We will have the investigative officer to handle this, at least for the time being, until we can work that out.
Okay. So do you want me to?
I'm just going to out there, yeah.
Yeah, we need to let the controller's office know if they're no longer retrieving the mail.
Yeah, as of right now, I mean, we could just have the officer retrieve the mail until we find a better system, I think.
And I'm not sure, but I think that the person who rents the PO box is the person who has access to it. So Attorney Davis would have to work that out with the controller's office. I think they have a key to it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll figure out the logistics of that.
Okay, so you and I can just talk about
Yes.
it later. Okay.
Yep.
Item 7 on the meeting agenda is the reorganization election of our 2021 officers. I know our charter says we're supposed to do this in January, but Attorney Hart, should we wait for Mr. Kovalevsky to become a full-time member to do this, or can we do it now?
I think it's appropriate to wait until January because I mean, we're talking a couple of days from now, so perhaps we can schedule a meeting for within the next 2 weeks.
That's fine. Can I ask a question, Dr. Meyer?
Mhm.
Who's the appointee were you?
Who did I replace, or
Did you come from city council, the mayor, or the
came from the city council? Yes.
council?
Mhm.
Mr. Kovalevsky?
The controller's office, John Murray.
Okay. Stephanie, I don't remember how you,
I was
Mayor.
the mayor Cognetti's, and I replaced the former mayor's appointee, who was the chair, who resigned.
I remember that part. I was just curious who has to fill the 5th position now. It looks to me like the council has to fill this position.
It's city.
Yeah, that's correct.
I was a mayor's appointee also, so.
I did check with the city clerk's office, and she was going to check with city council, but she believes they have not filled that vacancy yet, the second vacancy.
I don't believe they have, no.
I agree. That's right.
So Matt has actually filled Mary Jo Sheridan's vacancy, and Bruce Reddock's vacancy is still open.
Then Bruce was also a council appointee.
Right.
Okay. Attorney Hart. Can
Yes.
either you get Mr. Gahn's contact information, or can you contact him about getting our 5th?
Yes, I
person?
will. Yep, I can do that.
I know city's got a lot going on their plate, but I'd like to make sure you can at least get a 5th person here, so we're on operating board. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So our item 7 is going to basically be held till January sometime. We set up another meeting. Do we have any public participation? I'm not sure how this works on a Zoom meeting.
Well, actually, our legal ad directed people to send a question or concern or a comment to our email. And I checked the email late this afternoon, and there were no emails.
I think we're in a good place right now then.
Before we adjourn, do we want to decide on a meeting date for January?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that.
I think we should, yeah.
And it probably should not be a Tuesday evening, because typically that would be city council meeting. And they didn't have a meeting tonight.
Monday evening, Thursday evening. I'm not sure what works for everybody else.
I'm pretty adaptable right now, so I think I can make whatever you need work.
So,
And if you're saying a Thursday evening, I would say either the 14th or the 21st. Gives us some time to work out any of the issues we might have with our procedure.
Does that work for, which one works better for you, John?
The 14th on Thursday, that'd work.
14th?
Yep.
is 6 o'clock a good time?
Yeah.
That works for everybody? Gentlemen, works for you guys?
Yes.
Stephanie? Can you set it all up again?
Excuse me?
Can you set this all up again like you did?
Yes.
Okay,
We have to advertise. It gives me a little more time to get the ad in.
I do appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank you.
I've already made the connection with ECTV, and we have a Zoom account, so I'm happy to continue with that. So it will be Thursday, the 14th at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Perfect. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
That concludes everything, Andy.
Include them, have someone make a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
I'll make a motion.
I can second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
3 weeks.
Sounds good.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Nice meeting you all.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, likewise. Nice meeting
We'll
you
do
too.
some person
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Be better.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Sure. It went well.
I'm not good at these things, so yeah, I appreciate everything you're doing.
You did great. Okay. I'm going to end it.